Bedford-Stuyvesant. I left BK in '76 and went to Columbus, Ohio, but I'm a Brooklyn boy. You know, Brooklyn is a
Wait,
blood
you're
type.
in Columbus now?
I used to be in Columbus. I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia now.
Oh my Lord. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to have a good time. And Code
Yes, we are.
Keepers, Code Keepers, we're on a great mission today. So get ready for this show. This show, we're going to be dealing with poverty. We're going to be dealing with our community, reclaiming our community. And I know you're saying, well, Seiko, man, what's this have to do with empowerment? What's this have to do with black empowerment? Stay tuned. All right, welcome to Get On Code, the Fly Guy Show, which is a series of melanated conversations focused on empowerment, health, wealth, and knowledge of self.
People think in binary choices because they are conditioned to.
And on the wall was a picture of a wolf and a lion. I think the wolf was the Democratic Party, the lion was the Republicans.
But the drug trade and all these illegal stuff that people do, that's still economics. It's just that they couldn't do it in a traditional system.
We're talking about melanated wealth.
So we can build wealth, but we just, for some reason, don't seem to be able to transfer it.
You had a great experience. Fine. That means nothing.
What were you told as a child about education? You had to be how many times better?
Every impression without an expression becomes depression.
Code Keepers, we're in for a joint today. We're here with Majora Carter. She's a real estate developer, so you know that's part of my heart. She's an urban revitalization strategy consultant. What's that mean? We'll figure that out. And she's an author. And she's a New Yorker. You know, I'm a big time Brooklyn boy, and she's from the South Bronx, the South Bronx. Oh, snap. This is going to be a great conversation. This is going to be a great conversation. And as you can see, she's the author of the book I'm holding, and I've actually been reading the last few days. My bookmark is right there. Oh, man. Yo, Code Keepers, reclaiming, she says I'm going to say reclaiming our community. Whoo, this is deep. This is deep. I mean, because look, gentrification is real. And for many of us, you know, who are involved in real estate like I am, like you are, we think that, you know, gentrification really could be a good thing. So we're going to have to talk about that. But first of all, let's start with this urban revitalization strategist. What they do that at? You know, what is that about? Tell us, give us the details. You know, let's enhance our vocabulary.
Sure. So actually, it was a phrase that I was deemed that by the MacArthur Foundation when I won one of their fellowships, back in 2005, I think. And you know, they didn't really know what to call me because I wasn't just like a community activist. I wasn't, you know, in economic development, but it was like I did sort of like a mix of both of them that really worked to support our communities from the inside out. You know, starting with both, I did project-based economic environmental development in my hometown of the South Bronx. And so that's and so I actually liked it. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm working to revitalize my community from the inside out. So I'll take it. So I literally decided to call myself that. And that's what I am.
Wow.
Among many other things, but yes, I'll take it.
What are some of those other things?
I'm a real estate developer, and I am now an author as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, you know, we put up earlier that she was a real estate developer, urban revitalization strategy consultant, and an author. We weren't kidding, y'all. She's doing the doggone thing.
Yep.
And I want to start off with a building note. So I understand that someone's ancestorship led you to developing a park, which may have kind of set you along this journey. Can you talk about that?
Well, it's interesting because for the park that I started, you know, that was definitely the piece that led to my journey. And that really was just like recognizing that there were parts of our community that were not on anyone's radar. And in particular, this beautiful natural resource, you know, that was there. I mean, it was where, you know, the original folks that were here, the Seminole folks, this was like their ancestral land. And so I got to know that. And then there was also the people who are working on, you know, the enslaved Africans that were buried here that were there to work for the slaveholding families that were at once in New York for a time. But I think the other piece, what it led to was, and this is literally my ancestor. So the reason why I'm in the South Bronx to begin with is because my dad, who was a Pullman porter, on one of his trips out west, he went at a racetrack in Los Angeles, won $15,000 in the late 1940s, came back to New York because he was living in Harlem at the time, and he ended up plunking down that $15,000 to buy the house that I grew up in for cash. And in part because, that at that point, big old black men were not getting, they weren't able to finance houses. So of course he had to, because of all the racism associated with giving black folks money, or not even loaning them money. So he had to buy it for cash. And so he wanted the house here in this neighborhood specifically because there was this old rail station there that was allegedly supposed to be reopened and reactivated for rail service. And he was a Pullman porter. So he was just like, oh, that's where I want to live. If I can find a house there, that's where I'm going to go. So that's where he went. And now his daughter, his youngest child, owns that station and is transforming it into an event hall that I am convinced is going to be like the next major place as a music venue in New York City. It's going to be that hot. And people could get married there. They could have weddings and quinceañeras and sweet 16s and all sorts of parties. But basically, like, that's my vision for that.
Ashe. And hey, we thank the elevated ancestry, particularly your father, for making that seed.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's amazing what
I know, right? Crazy.
Wow.
So, but it's not crazy. It's God. It's our ancestors. I'm with you 100%. Yep.
Ashe on that.
Yeah.
Your book, Reclaiming Your Community, kind of goes along with that. Your father claimed that community. And now you're coming up with strategies to make sure that we can reclaim our community in a way that's meaningful, financially beneficial, and safe.
Yes.
So talk to that, because normally when people think of reclaiming our community, we really don't think they're safe. We really don't think there's an economic opportunity there.
Right.
We really think we're doing it for the culture, which is, I don't think necessarily the entire picture.
Right. And, having people reclaim it for the culture, like, that has not worked well for us because it doesn't give any people real reasons to want to stay and reinvest. Like, we can talk all we want about how people should stay and how they should do stuff, but unless we give them reasons to stay, they're not. I mean, because they just don't. And so what I did was take a page, borrowed it from business, which is a talent retention strategy. Because quite frankly, if you've got a business and you pour resources into your team, they get professional development, different training, blah, blah, blah. You're not doing that so they go and work for somebody else. You're doing it because you want them to actually support the company that you hired them to work at. But we don't have that same kind of mentality in terms of communities like ours, wherein, but we actually create, I think, a sort of a talent repulsion, system within our community, where the talented ones are taught early and often to measure success by how far we get away from our communities. And what we're trying to do is just completely change that narrative that our first fruits should really go into, or at least for some of us, and it's not going to be all of us, and I get that, but some of us at least should really be looking at our communities and recognizing that the systems that were put in place to literally expect us to leave our neighborhoods, that we need to take it back and use it to really redevelop our own communities for us. And reclaiming them involves, unlike gentrification, which is about outsiders coming in to change the community to suit their best interest, reclaiming means that the talent that was born and raised in our communities are there to improve the surroundings and our own economic future.
And you discuss retaining homegrown talent. So how do we find this talent? How do we benefit and provide resources to this talent, and then ultimately retain the talent?
Right. So, it's not hard because, bottom line is, low status communities, and when I mean low status, I don't mean there's something wrong with the people in the community. What I mean is that there are people, is that by both, internal and internally and externally, people look at those communities as sort of like problems to be solved, almost as if there's no real, that there's nothing, that inequality is assumed in those neighborhoods. And so what we're saying is that, the talent is already there. Talent is always born in those communities, but we don't work to keep it there. And from what we know, and because we did this research, and when we first decided to go into real estate development, we asked people in our own community, what do you dream about? What in terms of the community that you want to live in? And we weren't surprised when they said things that they wanted to have a community that was worth living in terms of lifestyle infrastructure. So whether it was like, restaurants and bars and, bookstores and, places where they could, meet people and enjoy and be themselves and express themselves, but also see like cool people around them as well. Like they didn't want like the trappings of poverty that we often find in low status communities, and people know what it looks like. It looks like, instead of banks, you'll see, check cashing stores and pawn shops and payday loan centers. You'll see, instead of like diverse dining options, you'll see, dollar stores and, and corner stores and, or bodegas and, not great quality food. And then you'll see lots of very highly subsidized affordable housing, for only very poor people. And so even if people who want to stay in their community, housing isn't necessarily even being built for them to stay in because they don't meet the very low income requirements.
Intriguing. Now, as a real estate developer, we're always looking to maximize our investments.
Mm-hmm.
Can we truly maximize our investments by developing low income housing?
Well, if you are a developer that's depending on the developer fees by building low income affordable housing, but I'm not promoting building low income affordable housing, solely. I do think that there's a time and a place for it, but I'm actually fervently, against the continued concentration of only building very low income housing in low status communities, because what it does is concentrate poverty. And there's stats that show that all over the place. And, and it also exacerbates all of the issues associated with concentrated poverty, from low health outcomes to low educational attainment, more people being involved in the justice system. Just it perpetuates this lack of hopelessness in those communities, so much so that like whenever people can afford to leave, they do. And that is the reality of the situation. And it's the kind of thing that nobody really wants to like acknowledge, but them's the facts. And do we want that to be like the legacy that we continue to create, that we measure success by how far we get away from communities that bore and raised us? And what does that say about how we think about ourselves? And to me, that sounds like we've just embraced the lie of white supremacy, that there's something wrong with us and our communities when we're in them.
You've been quoted as saying nobody should have to move out of their neighborhoods to live in a better one.
Yes, I have been.
And that's on in a museum somewhere, I understand?
Not just any museum. It's in the Smithsonian Museum, the Museum for African American, the African American culture, in DC, and it's all part of the permanent collection. Thank you very much.
Wow, pop your collar, Queen. That's impressive. Not only do you have a breathtaking and intriguing look on how we can empower ourselves to better empower our communities.
Mm-hmm.
But you in the Smithsonian.
It's kind of cool. But what's more? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no. What's more? What's more?
What's more exciting to me, is that there are plenty of folks around this country who I think see the value of reclaiming our communities and who want to see more of it happen. I mean, I just put it in print because I felt like it was needed, and in part because, I felt terrible about how much I embraced the lie, from being a kid, that there was something inherently wrong with my community, and by association, me and everybody else in it, if we stayed in a community like that. And I'm like, no, Like, why do we don't have to embrace that lie and act like that's something that we have to feed off of, because it's not true. No one is coming to save us, but so how about we try to save ourselves and create not just, surviving, but actual thriving communities, because that's what the people in our community told us. Like, they like nice things too. They wanted to feel like things were special for them. Who doesn't want that? And why do we not expect to have things like that in our communities? Like, I refuse to think that, our people want second rate anything. They don't. I mean, we were like the epitome of style and all sorts of class. If you ask me, it's like, we're just so beautiful, and we deserve nice things around us. And I'd like to build them and support other people in their quest to do the same thing.
Wow. We deserve nice things around us. That right there is beautiful. We deserve nice things around us.
But think about it. Like, so many of us don't think that our communities will ever be that.
Right.
And we built this cafe. We weren't trying to be in the cafe business, but I realized nobody else was going to come and respond, to the kind of data that we got about what people were leaving our communities to experience. And some of it was just as simple as like a nice place to hang out with their friends. And so we were actually looked and sought to get somebody else to come and build a cafe, but they didn't. So we did. And, and what we did was build the Boogie Down Grind, which is it's an homage to hip hop, because of course, South Bronx is the birthplace of it. And, you're welcome, everybody out there. But
Salute the Cool Herc. Salute the Cool Herc.
Yeah. So it was like super exciting. But one of the most beautiful things that I ever heard was, we had it up. It's like still there, obviously, but it's on a busy corner in our community. And what was so cool is that, especially during the pandemic, when we were outside, we would go sometimes kind of late, but our community responded in this beautiful way. And I would hear all the time, like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, y'all might have gone a little late the other night, but I haven't heard that kind of joy and laughter on our streets in decades. And I was like, sometimes like tears would well up in my eyes and tears would well up in their eyes, actually, a lot.
Right.
When they were just like, I never thought I'd see something like that in my community. And it's just like, it just breaks my heart. It does. It rips it apart in like so many ways. And it makes me, just so grateful that, that this is literally my ministry. It is. It's like, I love God. I love my neighbor. This is the manifestation of both.
Whoa. Now, one of the things that I'm really impressed with is you had 4 strategies that I was able to identify as I did my research. One was building the mixed income residences. Another one was developing vibrant third spaces like the Boogie Down Grind.
Yep, that's what it's called.
I love that.
To say the name before it. Yes,
it sounds like a dance too.
It is. Well, you're from New York. You know that the Boogie Down is the Bronx, so you know that. Don't tell me you don't know that.
Brooklyn keeps on taking it, and I'll leave it at that.
The Bronx keeps creating it. All right, so how about we go there?
All right, so restaurants, bookstores, Carter's Boogie Down Grind Cafe. What are some other third spaces that maybe we should start thinking about as we look to revitalize our communities?
Oh, it's parks. It's like it's stores. It's where people. Really, it's about where do people spend their money and their time. Are they spending it in their own community and taking all the beautifulness that God gave them as a gift and using it in somebody else's neighborhood? Or do they see the benefit of planting those seeds right where they are? It's like, we do need to see a few more seeds planted in our own communities. And I'm not hating on folks that decide to leave. I'm not. But what I do want to do is just give people, just a way to think about a change in their own community, which involves a change in their own mindset about where and what they want to be and how they want to grow, and can they actually do it in their own community? That's really what I'm talking about.
Right, right. Interesting. The other, I guess, a third strategy that I found when I looked at your content was helping homeowners to maximize the property value so they can resist selling out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting. Resist selling out and to help them build generational wealth. So those are two different conversations right there. So tap into both of them. How do you help homeowners and how do you build generational wealth?
Well, actually, it's the same conversation, because think about it. There were tons of entitlement programs, starting from the early 1600s that essentially made it so that white families could, create the American dream through home ownership or property ownership, Homesteaders Act, all those things. We literally gave land, first and foremost, taken from Native Americans, to build what became, the West and also like everywhere in the country. And, things from the GI Bill, to easier access to capital, to, appraising homes that white people live in is higher than identical ones that the people of color live in. So those type of things made it so that white families could do better than people of color, in particular Black folks. And we've got this and that's why the wealth gap is as wide as it is. So first things first, if we have homes right now, keep them. Do not believe, and it's a lie, from predatory speculators who call you and tell you that you're doing a good thing, by cashing out now. Because, I get those phone calls, for our properties, and they're real quick to say, and to tell me point blank, it's like, oh yeah, well, I represent like a, major real estate investor, and, we're interested in, your community. It's like, we can actually like help yourself by buying your property. And I was like, well, if you're willing, and this is what sometimes I do this stuff. It's like, well, if you're willing to do that on behalf of an investor, and I got the property, I want in on that deal. Like, why are you not putting me in on that? Like, I got the property already. I am that investor. And they're just like, and usually it's a click because they know that, they're not trying to include us in it. So, but what they're banking on is people from our community not knowing the value of the land that we have. And it's the reason why, like, for example, the home ownership rate in Hunts Point, where I live right now, is less than 7%. People sell their homes early and cheap, and almost always through predatory speculators with holding companies who can close early and cheap. So yeah, we absolutely do play this and still an informal role, where we try to help people understand the value, of getting their credit up, working with, become a first-time home buyer, to talk to people that own property already and try to convince them not to sell their home through a predatory speculator, but to go to a family, within our community so that we can build generational wealth that stays in the community. So it is the same thing. Like the same things that made, white people like their net worth go up as much as it did are the same exact things that would help us, but not if we sell early and cheap, not if we don't get into the game.
Wow. Okay. And that fourth strategy was showing. Okay, we just talked about that. Okay, you're the bomb, sis. You're the bomb.
Thank you. I'll take that.
All
You
right.
are too.
One of the things that I found intriguing is in your work, in your calling, you stated that you had to deal with the male and pale real estate industry.
Yeah, I still am.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how do you deal with the male pale real estate industry?
Well, fortunately, at least, fairly recently, some of them are coming on board and seeing me as a, as a partner, which is helpful. But I think especially early on, I'd like make it clear that this was a world I wanted to be in, and I got it coming and going. I think from both, the folks in the industry and even the government that was used to working with many of those folks who, just did, I think, saw me more, as an irritant or a threat rather than someone who can and should be, supported to build the kind of local regenerative developments within our communities. And, I think it was, really based on the fact that, for so many years, the between, the two kinds of real estate development, either, the kind of gentrification that leads to displacement, or what we call poverty level economic maintenance, that was so entrenched. And, so in particular within the quote unquote affordable housing.
Wait.
Go ahead. What?
Poverty level
Economic maintenance.
Wow. So, okay, we need to have operational definitions for those who are uninitiated.
Absolutely. Okay. So as you know, and you could see it, billions and billions of dollars, actually philanthropic as well as government, goes into certain neighborhoods like the South Bronx, the ones that I'm talking about. Yet they remain, economically stagnant for the people that are in them. And it's almost as if there's an assumption that poverty is this cultural attribute, and both the nonprofit industrial complex, and our government treats it that way, by building the same type of infrastructure that maintains those levels of poverty, and whether it comes in the form of government subsidized affordable rental housing, because God forbid, they teach people how to become first-time home buyers, and build for that, or community centers or health clinics and pharmacy. Again, billions of dollars. People make money, off of poverty. And you see it, in terms of the kind of architecture that's there. It's you're not going to find, people know it when they see it. They're the type of places that have, payday loan places and check cashing stores instead of banks. Lots of 99-cent stores or dollar stores, and or corner stores. Which is sometimes the best place to buy people's food, because it's not, God forbid, you've got different diverse dining options and really good grocery stores. All those things, but basically what they do, it's all those things kind of concentrate poverty and all the things associated with it. But so again, poverty level economic maintenance, or PLEM, sometimes as I shorten it to be, somebody's making all sorts of money. There's a lot of money to be made in those areas, but it doesn't benefit the people that are in those communities.
Wow, that's intriguing. Okay.
But do you see that, or?
I do, and you're actually helping me to see this in a different light, and in a way that has a strategy behind it that's going to lead to our empowerment. And the great thing is, it wasn't just this conversation. I've been reading the book.
Amen. Good.
I've been reading the book. So, Code Keepers, I encourage you. I implore you, as a matter of fact, find the book. Success leaves clues. This is a manifesto. This success is a manifesto. So tell us about, putting out the book. What was that like?
It was sort of cathartic. I think that's how you pronounce that word. I can see it written, but I don't think I've ever said it out loud. It was it was good, to kind of get it out, because I wasn't sure I could do it. And but it was with so sometimes it was hard to write, sometimes it was hilarious for me to write it, but for the most part I was just grateful that I got it out, just to show folks kind of a little bit what I've been through, and the trials and the tribulations, but also just some of the straight up joy. I love what I do, and I love seeing people enjoy the fruits of my labor. It's I don't care if they know my name or not. It's just I can't tell you what it's like, to see, something that you've had a hand in building, and watch how people internalize it for their own benefit. It's amazing. Wow. It is amazing. And I've seen other folks around the country, do it in their own communities. And so I talk about a bunch of them too. And it's just super cool. It really is.
Wow. One of the other things you talked about, now I'm going to ask you my ultimate keystone question in just a second to kind of wrap things up. But this nonprofit industrial complex. Now, I hadn't seen that term, or that phrase rather, hadn't seen that phrase before. So when I saw it, I thought to myself that, with some of the investors and the business people I associate with, we keep telling folk, hey, look, we don't need another business that asks us to donate to them. But we can use another business that can hire people, that can put out a product that will sustain our people.
Yes.
So are we barking up the same tree?
Well, they're
What do you
not.
mean by the nonprofit industrial
Well, you know
complex?
the like industrial complexes. Like Eisenhower talked about the military industrial complex, and that it basically it created wars so that it could perpetuate itself, right? You make more wars, you can
Ooh.
sell more weapons. There's like a whole industry around it, right? So there are other types of industrial complexes, and I think the nonprofit world is one of them. It exists more, to keep itself in uh, out there and available to say that they're doing like the best thing to support these folks. But especially when it comes down to low status communities, they're literally creating this thing that really serves more to perpetuate itself. They're treating poverty like it's a cultural attribute, like it's something that we just do because what else do we do in those communities? You're just either poor or you don't belong there, and that's why it's okay for the talented ones to leave. But there's also as well, like there's an industry making money around it, so that kind of hurts, right? Um, so if all the money that was the billions of dollars that were spent, you would think that things would actually change in our communities, but they're not, and they haven't. And in fact, like one could argue that things have actually even gotten worse because we're not building the kind of infrastructure, in particular on the economic side, that's there to support people like us who were there. And so, yeah, thanks for flipping that so I could actually see you and you're not down there on the screen. But it's super exciting, to think that we have the keys to our own economic recovery within our own community. But I also know that it's sort of almost like heresy to some folks, where it's just sort of like, the nonprofits, these like, the moral heart, of our community. And I'm just like, if you're not building something that's creating and regenerating health and well-being in our community, then
Right.
if we're not getting any better, then you need to check what you're doing and just reassess it. And I know that that's hard, for a lot of people to even think, because, we've been led to believe that, the nonprofits and they're like the moral center, and, they really, they're there for the community. And I'm like, okay, then I would like for my community to get better. Thank you very much. And not to mention, it's actually, that a lot of philanthropy is simply, racist in its funding. Like the kind of like the little crumbs that are sprinkled, the people of color led organizations it's frightening. Like there was actually a
Wow.
crazy report that came out that, it's like climate change is absolutely going to be felt more by vulnerable populations. And in the States, that's people of color, and our communities, because we're the ones with like, all the noxious facilities, dealing with like low-lying areas, all that stuff. And there was a study that came out that showed that less than 2% of climate change funding going to those
Right.
organizations went to people of color led organizations.
Family,
I
we
know.
have some work to do.
Hello.
Family, we have some work to do. Family, we have some work to do. We have
And
some
we can
reading to
do it.
do. We have some reading to do. And we want to thank Queen Carter for her work. And we want to thank your father for the seed he planted. We're going to bring this to an end because I know we're at a hard stop right now. But Code Keepers, pick up the book, read the book, learn from the book, and let's go out and do what she's doing. Thank you for being on Code. Thank you for teaching the code. I mean, whew. You got on Code, you shared the code, you taught the code, you became the code. Our code is empowerment.
Yeah, man.
And we love y'all. Peace.
Love you too. Peace out. Thank you.